Hi, my name is Micah Goodman. Jewish tradition doesn't have many instructions about how to build a healthy democracy, but it can inspire us to heal our democracy, to heal our divided, polarized world. In my talk, I will discuss how Judaism can do that by tapping in to the spirit of the Talmud and less to the spirit of the Bible. So here's the truth, and the truth is that Judaism never spoke about democracy. When I say Judaism, I mean the Talmud, the Tanakh, the Bible, the great text, the great canon of Jewish tradition. We don't have laws of democracy. We're not guided to create a democracy. There is no halacha for citizens in democracy. But that doesn't mean that our tradition is irrelevant to our challenges and to the question, how should we become? What does it mean to be a great citizen in a democracy today? Because even though our tradition doesn't have guidance and laws, it does have role models that could inspire us to shape a healthier society and a healthier democracy. Because we become what we admire. We become the person that we admire. And our tradition offers us role models to admire. When I say that, I think we should split our ancient tradition into two. There is the world of the Tanakh, of the Bible, that offers one kind of a hero. And then there is the world of the Talmud, of the rabbis, that offers a different kind of a hero. Now, the prophet is a hero of the Bible. And that could shape a very interesting democracy. It could inspire a healthy democracy, the spirit of prophecy. But the Talmud did not produce prophets, it produced scholars. The scholars are a different kind of a role model. They're a different kind of a hero that when we imitate that kind of a hero, it shapes a different kind of a democracy, a different kind of a public discourse. And I think we need both, and what we'll try to do in the 18 minutes I have left is to try to draw out from the Bible, what does the prophet have to offer us? And then from the Talmud, what does the rabbi, the scholar, have to offer us? Very briefly, I'll start with the Bible, and here I go. So a good place to start is Abraham. Abraham that challenges God himself. I'm not kidding. In the book of Genesis, when God shares with Abraham his secret, and the secret is that he wants to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham challenges him and criticizes God. He says to him, "Chalila lecha le'asot kadavar hazeh. Hashofet kol haaretz lo ya'aseh mishpat." Abraham says, does the God of justice not do justice in this world? Every time I read this verse, I think maybe I got the verse wrong, because it doesn't make sense. These are not verses where God criticizes a human being, but it's reverse. A human being, Abraham, criticizes God. Now, Abraham is the founder of this tradition, but he is not the only one in this tradition. Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, does the same. El Elohei haruchot lechol basar ha'ish echad yecheta ve'al kol ha'eida tikzof. Moses says to God, is it possible that one person has sinned? He means Korach. And God punishes the entire community. Where is the justice? Where is the fairness? Later on in the Bible, Jeremiah joins his tradition, criticizes God. Madua derech Hashem tzalecha. Why is it that evil people have better lives? The entire book of Job is a part of this tradition. The book of Habakkuk is a part of this tradition. Some chapters in Psalms are part of this tradition. What's a tradition? It's a tradition, as my teacher Aviezer Ravitsky put it once, it's Masoret Tochechat Ha'el. It's a tradition of criticizing God. This is amazing, shocking, but it's there. It's in the Bible. Now, since the Bible trains its readers to admire people that criticize God, what does that Bible do to our relationship with authority? Well, the real heroes of the Bible are the prophets that were never part of the authority, They were never part of the establishment. They always criticized the establishment. Usually the Kohanim, they criticized the priests and the temple and the religious establishments. And with even more passion, they criticize the political establishment of monarchy. You see, this is what's interesting about the Bible. It doesn't admire the people who justify God, it admires the people who criticize God. I'm not making this up. And it doesn't admire the king, but the prophet. Not the person with the power, but the person that speaks truth to power. So this is a powerful hero to admire. And if we become what we admire, if admiring transforms the admirers, by admiring the prophet, we're admiring the people that always were opposing power, speaking truth to power, not surrendering to any authority, including God's authority. Now that is a powerful message for democracy. Democracy needs people that have the courage to stand in front of the establishment and point out its weaknesses, point out its boundaries, that have the guts to speak truth to power. That's what the prophets offer us, not to surrender to any authority. That's what keeps democracy alive and vibrant. But our tradition has another world, the Talmudic world, which produced the hero of the rabbi. And the rabbis were not the people that were constantly protesting and shouting and yelling and challenging power. Rabbis had something very different going. Rabbis were the masters of great conversations. You see, if the prophets were about preaching, and with absolute certainty that what they think is what is God's thoughts, it's God's words, and they're protesting and they're preaching and they're saying that the world is horrible and the world is coming to an end, and they have this absolute certainty that they're using to preach and to protest against the structures of power, the rabbis are different. First of all, their voice is a little bit lower. The first question in the Talmud is, what time are you supposed to read Shema in the evening? You're supposed to say Shema twice a day. What time are you supposed to say? Tell what time can you say Shema in the evening? And one rabbi says till midnight. Another rabbi offers another opportunity. Another rabbi says that you actually have it till the morning. And they're arguing. And the Talmud, everyone will offer evidence for their position. You see, if the prophets are preachers, the rabbis are listeners. In Traktat Sanhedrin, in Masechet Sanhedrin, it says, there's a great line that the Talmud asks, who can sit in the Sanhedrin, to be a member of the Sanhedrin. Now, the Sanhedrin, for whoever doesn't know, is the most exclusive intellectual forum in ancient Jewish antiquity. Then he asks, what does it take to be a member of the Sanhedrin? So the Talmud says, you can't be accepted, you can't sit, you can't be a member of this very exclusive intellectual forum unless you can do the following: letaher et hasheretz min haTorah. What does that mean? Letaher et hasheretz min haTorah. Well, it means sheretz is an impure animal, but this is an extremely impure animal. Most impure animals, when you eat it, you become impure. But the sheretz is so impure that it's enough that you touch it and you're impure. It's radioactive. Because it's like COVID-19. You're not allowed to get close to it, or else it impurifies you. So what does it take to be a member of the Sanhedrin? If you could purify the sheretz, if you could find reasons why the most impure animal is actually pure. Now let's think about that. Can my right-winger friends that think that the left is impure, can they find reasons to purify it? Can my left-winger friends that can't stand the right, They think it's completely, being a right winger is an abomination today. Can they find reasons for that to be pure? You see, that's what it takes to be a member of the Sanhedrin, to purify the impure. And that takes two things. One, I guess a lot of intellectual power to find great arguments to justify something you think is wrong. But it also doesn't only take intellectual depth and power, it also takes deep emotional power, what people call today psychological flexibility. This is what Carol Gilligan, the great feminist and scholar, calls radical listening. Now think of those two words, radical listening. It almost sounds like a contradiction in terms. Because when we imagine someone that's radical, we imagine the prophet, right? People protesting, yelling, shouting. But what does that mean to listen radically? Not to shout radically, not to protest radically, but to listen radically. So Carol Gilligan puts it this way. I think the way she describes it is exactly what the rabbis tried to do. It means that when you listen to someone intuitively, when we go with our instinct, when we listen to someone that thinks differently than we do, our first instinct is, why are they wrong? But can we overcome that instinct and ask an alternative question? Why are they right? Meaning, why do they think that they're right? This is how Carol Gilligan puts it. It's replacing judgment with curiosity. You meet someone with a different political worldview, our first instinct is judgment. Why do they think that way? We measure them, we judge them. What does it say about them? Maybe they're not good people, right? We respond with judgment. Carol Gilligan asks, can we replace judgment with curiosity? That's so interesting that that person, which I think it's a good person, why do they think that way? To respond with curiosity. Because the movement towards curiosity, that is radical listening, replacing judgment with curiosity. That's the art of the rabbis and the Talmud. That's what it takes to be a member of the Sanhedrin. Let's try to put this together. What do the prophets offer us? Protest, not surrendering to authority, criticizing the establishment, fighting, the spirit of fighting for what you believe in. That's the spirit of the prophets. The spirit of the rabbis is a spirit of radical listening, the spirit of the art of conversation, the spirit of elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chaim, both sides of the words of the living God. What do we need for a functioning democracy? The art of fighting or the spirit of listening? First of all, obviously, we need both. We need the prophets and the scholars. We need people that could fight for what they believe in, but also people that could listen to people that say things that they don't believe in. But let's be honest, what do we need today? The spirit of the prophets or the spirit of the rabbis? So here, you could all decide for yourselves. I'm going to share with you my opinion. We're living in a prophetic time, and the reason why we're living in a prophetic time, a time where everybody believes that their words are the words of the living God, and the other person is always Sdom ve'Amorah, always not only wrong, but just for having those opinions, something is wrong with them. We're living in that kind of time for a reason. And I hope many of you saw, and you should see, I think, the great movie on Netflix now, Social Dilemma, describes how the algorithms of Facebook and even of Google is designed for us always to be trapped in our own worldviews, creating very deep certainty, absolute certainty that what we believe in is absolutely true, and the other side is not only completely wrong, something is deeply wrong. Something is deeply wrong with them. And that is one of the reasons why the world is so polarized. Robert Putnam from Harvard, He measures polarization. He says that in the United States of America, it was never polarized this way the entire 20th century. It's possible that the last time America was so polarized was in the 1860s. That doesn't mean America, the United States, is before Civil War, but it means that America is very polarized. America's not alone. England is polarized. Hungary is polarized. Brazil is polarized. Israel is polarized. And it might not be a coincidence that all these societies are polarized at the same time. Maybe Marshall McLuhan is right. Maybe it's not because of our messages. Maybe it's because of the medium. And when our medium polarizes us, maybe now we need not the spirit of the prophets, the spirit of the rabbis. Maybe now we need less shouting and more listening, radical listening. Thank you.